Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Between the Sharks. As you can see, I've got the truck haphazardly pulled back into the garage because we made a new purchase that I needed to get undercover before the rain started. If you're like me, you spend way too much time shopping for cars and parts on the internet that you may or may not need, but it's part of the habit, it's part of the hobby, it's something we all do, and it's a lot easier than, actually working in the garage. But, well, we'll admit that. I was doing that sort of internet hot rodding the other day, and I came across what I thought was a pretty good deal for me. So I took a drive down to the south side of Atlanta, met a fine fella, and bought a bunch of stuff that is sitting in the back of the truck. Let's take a look. So what do we have here? I know, don't play the wah horns yet. I know it's just a small block Chevy. And, as Vice Grip Garage would say, it's had a very poor Craigslist rebuild. But let's just take it all in before we judge it, right? The casting number 39700010 is super common from the late 60s to like 1980, I think. And I repeat, do not get your hopes up. This is not one of the 302 4-bolt main Camaro Z28 motors. In fact, it is a bone stock truck motor. I checked the stamp on the front of the heads, and it should have been a 2-barrel carburetor, I think, which would have been rated at 145 horsepower with the 4-barrel. It's about 160. I know. Why am I all excited about it? Well, it's a double-edged sword, right? Remember this? This inline 6 I put in 10 years ago, I think, maybe 8 years ago, and I've put over 75,000 miles on it. Now that's after buying it on Craigslist for $350, not opening it, not checking compression, nothing. I pulled it out of a running Nova that had all of those original miles on it. We put it in here with a new clutch, and I've been driving it for almost 10 years, at least 70,000 miles from me. So this motor's probably, it's anybody's guess. It's got a ton of miles on it, and it's super tired, and I have not been good to it. In fact, I haven't even had an air cleaner on it for 5 years. And I don't change the oil very much. And if you watch the previous videos, I ran it over 2 quarts low for who knows how long, and who knows how many times I've done that. So that's my fault. Thus, I was keeping an eye out, just in case, for either a new inline 6 or an affordable small block, just in case I actually do squeeze every last penny out of this thing and I kill it. So why this motor? Well, it stuck out to me, A, because of the price. Reveal that at the end here, but also because it seems like a bone stock motor that nobody's really monkeyed with besides trying to put a coat of paint on it. I have had a ton of luck with decent, less tired stock motors, and I've had bad luck like crazy with rebuilt motors. Now, I have never built a motor, but to me, it's a little bit like baking bread or something like that, where you have to spend all this time and you put all the ingredients in and then you throw it in the oven and you wait for an hour and hopefully it comes out. I would like to build a motor someday, and maybe we'll get around to that. I've watched, plenty of YouTube about it. But that said, for daily drivers, I've had a lot of luck taking somebody else's used stock motor without hot rod parts, driving it daily in traffic, and that's what I did with the inline 6. So this is my backup plan because I could not find an inline 6, and I've been looking casually for a while. It's just got to meet some parameters, stockish, good price points. But let's look at what I got with all of this. The advertisement said he was pulling it out of a 1956 Chevrolet Bel Air and came with the Bel Air transmission, a 3-speed. That perked my interest because I need a Tri-5 bell housing. We'll get into why later for our Model T project, because I want to run a manual transmission. And the way the starter works on those bell housings, there's some options there. So I thought, man, that's great. I could use the motor, plus I need the bell housing, and I'll take a 3-speed because maybe it's an overdrive, maybe it's not, maybe it's garbage, we'll see. There's no picture of the transmission. His price was right. I figured I'd cruise on down there. So I did, and I got there, and this is what we found. Pretty stock looking motor, except we've got some new accessories. Somebody put this into the project. Now the Bel Air was a nice roller that had this in it. Now this alternator was manufactured in 2017. I don't think it's ever been run. This belt is brand new. These are aftermarket ram's horn smoothie headers that are about 170 bucks from Speedway. Don't really like them. I like the original ram's horns that aren't so smooth. Those look like aftermarket parts, so they may go down the road, we'll see. High torque mini starter. Jackpot, we've got a flywheel, which I will need for either the truck or for our manual transmission conversion in our Model T. We've got a Brandy new, some kind of fancy distributor. If somebody can help me identify it, that would be great, because I don't speak these that well. He did crack the cap, taking it out. Got one of these coils, and I don't really know what kind of thingamajigger that is. It may just be like a standard coil. I don't really know. I'm used to the cylinder ones. Brand new plug wires. This flywheel seems brand new, although it does seem like somebody broke off a clutch bolt in there. I just noticed that. It's a little bit of a bummer, but I think I can deal with it. In addition, speaking of clutches, take a look at this. Brand new, spanking brand new. Pressure plate, also brand new. The clutch was never even hooked up. They didn't have the Z-bar for the car. So this motor and transmission was dropped back in the car, and then apparently the motor was wired to run, but the clutch and stuff was never hooked up. In addition, with the transmission, we got the bell housing, which with the Tri-5 bell housings, there's actually the spot for the starter down here, which gives you a couple of options. It's interesting because being a 74 block, they have the starter in the thingamajigger. I think it was 1962, but somebody please correct me and write down in the comments if it's different. I think that in 62, they stopped using this bell housing 3-bolt mount and started going to the mounts that go into the bottom of the block. That's why I love these bell housings, and they are getting harder and harder to find. Even though it's cast iron, the last swap meet I went to in April, they were like 150 bucks is what they wanted, with no clutch fork, which we have, and we have a throwout bearing. So that's pretty cool too. Can you guys see that stuff? Got some light in here for you. All right, so what looks like a brand new throwout bearing and a clutch fork. Also parts that we need to gather to do our manual transmission conversion on our Model T. So we're winning and winning and winning again. The other thing about this is, so now I got the bell housing that has both starter options. I mean, I can put the starter in the bell housing or I can put it under the block. Because we've collected a bunch of 283s, I honestly have not looked to see how early the 283s are. We're putting a 283 in the Model T and putting a 283 in the Mercury. If it's an early 283, like these are post 59 because I can tell by the valve cover bolts, but we may need this bell housing, not just want to use it. So that's just, you know, that's just wins, right? And then I told the man, like, we can take a quick look. What do you guys see? 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 Okay. Took a quick look at the transmission, and he's like, if you don't want it, you can leave it here. It's like, no, I want it. I said, hey man, that's a later model. You know, that's not a 56. That's, I don't know what it is, but it's not a 56. It may be a 70s transmission. If this is a 70s motor, maybe that's a 70s truck transmission. I don't really know. So we just got after it, loaded everything in the truck. I drove it home as fast as I could to try to beat the rain, and I got it back here, and I noticed something. You guys want to see? I noticed, check this out. You guys see what I see? Didn't even notice it until I got back here. And then I thought, no, it can't be. Can't be. So I went on the internet to prove that it can be. There's your clue. This is a Saginaw 4-speed. 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 It's just missing the reverse lever. I didn't identify it on the spot, and I racked my brain. There's a 3-ring shaft, which is The not close ratio one, I'm sure on the internet somebody will tell me it's terrible and it'll explode. But it's a 4-speed, dudes. Have you tried to buy a 4-speed lately? Cause, you know what I mean? They're getting ridiculous. Small block Chevy and a Saginaw 4-speed. No, it's not a Muncie. I know some people are like Muncie or nothing or whatever. We're not pulling that kind of horsepower on our Model T, and our car's not that heavy. So it's gonna be great if we decide to go that route. This is not a hot rod small block, but that's fine. It will most likely find its home in a stock daily driver pickup truck that will scoot down the road just fine and be reliable as the day is long. Let's talk about the combination of parts too. If you're out there looking and you want to run a manual transmission on a small block Chevy, you may end up spending way too much money buying mismatched parts because you need a bell housing that matches your car, which should be fine. Most bell housings will swap. Almost all bell housings. But your flywheel, there's two options, the 168 tooth, which we have here, and the 153 tooth. Then your clutch has to match your flywheel. Your starter has to match your flywheel. Like, there's a bunch of parts and pieces that if, you know, it's not that many combinations, but it's enough combinations that if you're getting it wrong, having a starting point with all of the pieces that fit together is huge, especially if you're learning. So this is a great deal for anyone like that. One of the things I found out about hot rodding as I've been doing this for many moons as a hobby is that there's not really any money in it. You know, like, you may be able to build a car and sell it and make a couple of bucks relative to your general investment, but you really cannot account for your time. Or the average garage dude like me, like, you're not gonna get paid for the work you put into it. In fact, it's usually, if you start to calculate, it's just cheaper to buy a running driving car that somebody else built. Because there's not a lot of profit in it, and that's really not the point, it's just for fun anyway, I gotta keep this economical. This whole thing, everything we bought here, was 550 American dollars. Now, I check the old internet religiously, and when I see a deal, I jump on it. Like, I talk to the guy in the morning, and by the afternoon, this was all in my truck. That said, this motor could be a dud, this transmission could be a dud, but we can do the math on all of the other parts. We got, let's say, $170 headers. This is all retail, so obviously if I wanted to sell this stuff, I'm not gonna get that money back, but I just need to, you know, we need to pick a set of parameters. So we'll go with retail. $170 headers, $140 clutch kit, $120 flywheel, $100 alternator, $100 and change dollar, you know, distributor. So what are we at? We're more than I paid already. And then I got a 4-speed transmission, which they're harder to get than they ever used to be. And then I got a 55 or 56 bell housing, so Tri-5 bell housing, which is about 120 to 150 bucks. Now, they used to go for like 50 bucks for the cast iron ones at a swap meet, but swap meets are getting harder to find, and you know, people aren't spending the money on gas dragging this junk out, because the reason that I got this deal, everybody say it with me, he was doing an LS swap. Nothing wrong with an LS motor. In fact, I love it. If everybody keeps putting LS motors in, then I can run all this like naturally aspirated stuff that I understand. I don't understand LS motors. I'm sure they're awesome. This to me is fun. I love the mechanics more than I love computers and electronics in a car. Like this I can sort of diagnose. And so anyway, you do your thing the way that you want to, but that's what I love about this stuff. Now this leaves us with some questions that maybe you guys can help out with. Question number 1, what do we do here? I mean, this has been a great motor. The way I see it, we could retire her, pull her out, keep her in the back of the shop, maybe for a one-day wild hair project, put the 350 in it, and just keep this as a daily driver. Now, remember, priorities are that this stays my reliable daily driver. I have commuted in this thing up to 50 miles each way. The other option is I just keep going with it, and when she finally gives it up and I get every last penny out of it and blow it up, then we do the swap. Even driving this motor home the motor that's in the back, bringing it back here in traffic on a 95-degree day. She was getting hot and she was struggling uphill. So, you know, what do you think? You know, what's the right thing to do for this motor? Do we wear it out, or do we give her a break and do a happy, nice retirement ceremony, pull her out, stick her in the shop corner somewhere, and drop this 350 in and move on? I mean, that's no small task, by the way. Like, exhaust has to change. There's just a lot. Like, it's not a drop in and swap. So that'd be a fun project that we'll do on the channel eventually. So if you guys want to, you know, accidental Viking funeral on the road somewhere at some point, or do we just kind of pull her out and send her to the pasture in a nice, peaceful way? That's question number one. What do we do with the transmission? Because I have had squirreled away a 1960s GM 3-speed with overdrive, which is kind of a neat transmission. Maybe I'll do a video on it if anybody's interested, but it's not quite what you think. It sort of splits gears. It's a really, really neat thing. But we got a 4-speed now. It's a hot rod. Manual's the way to go. 3-speed, 4-speed. I'm leaning towards 4-speed. I don't know, but you know, it's not like I'm gonna get rid of either one of them. And who's putting like, it's just, you know, it's just one of those things. So we've got some final thoughts here. So between what the man told me and what I'm seeing here, that somebody had already started to put sort of, you know, spending new parts on this motor. The guy I bought it from said he had it running for a little bit, sounded fine, ran fine. And then everything else I'm finding in here is suggesting that somebody was putting a car together. You know, the brand new headers, brand new starter, brand new alternator, brand new clutch. There's even RTV on the side of the side cover of the transmission, which means maybe somebody poked their head in there. Now, that means somebody could have bubbled up all this stuff, but really, to me, it's most likely that somebody was calling this a good running motor and they were going to use it in that 56 Bel Air. Project stalled, changed hands, LS swap, Bob's your uncle, I got a new motor for me. I could probably just throw this in the truck and run it as is and be pretty satisfied for another 50,000 miles. And for 550 bucks, you can't beat that with a stick. Now that said, let's talk like a little bit in defense of the old school small block. Nothing wrong with the LS's, and when you go to the other side with really traditional hot rods, there is, like, flatheads are cool, rocket motors are cool, Hemis are cool, nailheads are cool. They're all really cool. But if you can pick up a small block for 550 bucks with a 4-speed transmission, anybody can learn how to tune one of these. There's so much information out there. There's like, you don't hate on them just because they're common, because they are common and that makes them a little vanilla-y, but the reality is they're common because this design was so reliable that they kept making it and just kind of improving it. And parts swap from one motor to another. You know, if you're building your first hot rod, if you really have to have a flathead, man, go get yourself a flathead. I'm never gonna say don't. But for 550 bucks, you could be going down the road, and if you want it to feel sort of traditional or period correct, get yourself the right period headers, get yourself some period valve covers, get yourself a period intake, and run some points on it. This motor wouldn't look much different than the actual early 60s 283 will be running in the Model T by the time it's done and dressed out. I'm not saying you should fake it or whatever. I'm just saying, what am I saying? I guess I'm saying that as much as I scour the internet, I'm not finding deals on flatheads. I'm not finding deals on Olds rockets. I'm not finding deals on Hemis. Like, builder motors around here, like maybe crack block, pig and a poke, nobody knows motors are going for just under $1,000. Well, for 550 bucks, I got an engine, a transmission, a bell housing, a clutch, a distributor, exhaust headers, an alternator. Like, I'm not gonna try to get into what the essence of hot rodding was about, because I was not there and whatever. But as far as I understand, some degree of it was guys taking a car and making it a little more fun and a little faster by putting a slightly bigger motor in there as cheap as possible. Anywho's, thanks for watching Between the Sharks. If you guys have made it this far in the video, please consider subscribing. It really does help the channel out, and it's completely free to you. I'd love to hear what you guys think about this motor. Should we swap this motor in before the Inline 6 goes completely kaput? Or should I drive her until I cause a $3 million traffic jam when I throw a rod out of it or it seizes up completely in 100-degree Atlanta weather? And I'd also love to hear your comments on what we think about the 4-speed versus the 3-speed with overdrive for our Model T project, because I am legitimately torn. Anyway, good luck on your projects out there. Here is a fine example. No, it's not the coolest stuff you can get, but a 4-speed is pretty cool and a reliable, I'm assuming it's reliable. But what I'm saying is, a small block Chevy is a good bet at low cost, reliability, power, or whatever you want for your projects out there. Keep an eye out. Everybody doing the LS swaps, they are the gold mine for this old junk that they don't want anymore. So it can be done. This stuff can be done on a budget. You just got to keep your eyes out. Good luck on your stuff out there. We'll see you next time on Between the Sharks.